What's good, everyone? It's Zach, and welcome back to Grailboundgaming. It has been a little bit over 2 months since the release of Clair Obsur Expedition 33 by Sandfallinteractive, and my goodness, this game has been getting a lot of great recognition and rightfully deserved. I know that for a lot of you out there, this is your top contender for Game of the Year, but I myself cannot make that statement until after I complete the game. Speaking of, I've been able to put in 4.5 hours so far. I've completed roughly 10% of the game, which means that I'm still in Act 1 and I have a long way to go. But even with the short amount of time that I've spent with this game, there's a good bit to talk about, which is why in this video, I'm going to share my initial thoughts on Clair Obsur Expedition 33 for the PlayStation 5. So without further ado, let's get to it. So the setting for this game takes place in a city called Lumiere. Some people believe that this is some alternate form of Paris, France, because you can see a structure in the opening cutscene that resembles the Eiffel Tower. But I'll say this, Lumiere is a perfect blend of both beauty and destruction. There's elaborate monuments, statues, and buildings throughout the city. And there's even these like crystalline formations that have weaved their way in and around the city itself. Not to mention, in the sky, there's debris and these large rock-like formations that exist. So yeah, it's definitely that type of blend for sure. What's very intriguing about this game for me personally is the backstory. So in the prologue, we learned that Lumiere used to be part of a larger landmass known as the main continent, but due to a catastrophic event that occurred 67 years prior to the events of this game, known as the Fracture, it caused Lumiere to break away from the main continent and be pushed out into the ocean. So the only way to travel back and forth between Lumiere and the main continent is by boat. That's pretty much the only way. And during the prologue, you can see that there's this large monolith way off in the distance with the number 34 displayed on it. The significance of this monolith is really tied to the actions of one individual, and that is the paintress. So every year the paintress wakes up from her slumber, she erases the number off the monolith and replaces it with a new number. And anyone in Lumiere who is of that same age as the number that's displayed on the monolith, they are erased from the community. They cease to exist in an instant, which is really, really crazy. And we find out that this cycle, if you will, has been happening since the occurrence of the Fracture, which lets me know that, you know, prior to the Fracture, the paintress either didn't exist or wasn't tied to Lumiere in some form or fashion. But due to the fact that, you know, she's been, you know, changing this number on this monolith and those in Lumiere have been dying off due to her actions, it all started with the Fracture that happened 67 years prior to the events of this game. So due to all of this, the monolith actually serves as a reverse calendar that's been counting down the years, starting with year 100. So it started at year 100, and at the beginning of the game, we're on year 34, and it's on the verge of turning into year 33. Not only that, but since there's this countdown that's been happening, the age of the residents of Lumiere have been getting younger and younger and younger, which means that if something isn't done to stop the actions of the paintress from her waking up and changing out this new number, then they're just going to get wiped out completely. This community is going to vanish and no one will cease to exist. So you can see that there's a lot of not only concern, but there's a responsibility for anyone living in this community, in this city, to make sure that they aren't living for themselves, but they are living to either inspire the next generation. It's all about what can the next generation benefit from us today. So that's one thing that I really wanted to definitely touch on, because it's pretty much counterintuitive and counterculture to what we see in our society today, where it's like, you know, a lot of people are just living for themselves and their families. But in this community, it's not like that, which is why, you know, some people have decided to pick up a skill and have, you know, an apprentice or several apprentices that they can, you know, teach their skills to and have them continue that on after they are gone from this community. Not only that, but there's even a portion of the prologue where you see piles and piles of furniture, and this furniture has been left behind. So the original owners who had this furniture understand that they are going to be erased from the community soon, and they've left behind their furniture for other people to use. So once again, there's a sense of urgency, there's a sense of responsibility to invest in the next generation that's coming after you, and there's also a big push to end this cycle that the residents have been subjected to for years upon years. Another thing that I want to mention as well that is insane is that there are a group of residents who have decided to dedicate the last year of their life to join an expedition to go out and kill the Paintress, like literally stop her from painting a new number every year. And we call that the expedition, right? It's the group of expeditioners who have dedicated their life for this particular purpose. What's insane is that there has been multiple groups of expeditioners since year 100. And here we are 67 years later on the verge of year 33, and no group has been successful. Every group has died in their attempt to stop the Paintress, but they've left behind clues for any groups to follow. That just blew my mind to know that there's been all of these failed attempts, and yet when it comes to the community, the city as a whole, they have not lost hope. And yes, there may be individuals within the community that have lost hope, but as a whole, they are pushing forward, and they're able to rely on clues from any of the past expeditions. Now, there are two events that I want to briefly discuss that take place during the prologue on the same day. The first event is called the Gamage, and the Gamage is to, honor or pay respects toward individuals who will be erased soon from the community, right? So an honoree wears a garland of red and white flowers that have been handpicked or selected by their loved ones. So throughout the prologue, you can see red and white flowers everywhere. You can see merchants, you can see red and white trees, you can see flowers in the sky. They're all over the place because the Gamage is going to take place very soon. And then the other event that I want to talk about, which takes place later on in the night, is called the Festival of the Expedition. And this is really an opportunity for men and women who are a part of that group, right? Who's going to be going out in their pursuit of killing the Paintress. They are able to spend time together, encourage one another, have some alcoholic drinks, some great conversations before they set out the next day. And even now, with so many failed attempts, it's time for Expedition 33, which is the 67th group of men and women to go out in their pursuit of killing the Paintress. It is their time. It is their time to pursue this journey. And will they be successful? Will they fail? That is the question that is to be found out by playing the game. So yeah, you can definitely see why I'm just so pumped up, why I'm so hyped to really dive back into this game and to really see their journey play out, whether for better or for worse. I actually want to spend a little bit of time talking about the characters, some of the key characters that you were introduced to in the prologue and even a little bit in Act 1. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's definitely some very unique personalities per character that you will discover. First, I want to start off with Gustav, right? Gustav is a member of Expedition 33, which means he's going to be traveling out with the rest of his comrades in pursuit of killing the Paintress. And I'll say this, he has a hard time expressing his emotions at times, but you know exactly what he is feeling by his facial expressions. So in different cutscenes, if you actually look at his face, you'll understand what it is that he's feeling and what he's trying to express. He's definitely a deep thinker, and he's also very charismatic. People just enjoy being around him. So I think that's really cool. Next up is Emma, which is Gustav's sister. She's also the counselor, the chief counselor of Lumiere, which means he holds a very high political position within the city. And she pretty much considers this expedition to be a fool's quest, mainly because her brother is involved. She questioned his decision to, spend the last year of his life being a part of this group. She does, however, says that the expedition is a necessity, but it's definitely a bloodless guillotine. When it comes to Emma, she's definitely a leader for sure, and she's very eloquent when it comes to her speech and her mannerisms.
Expeditioners. The Sword of Lumiere. We honor your dedication. We do not take for granted that you dedicate your final year of life to keeping hope alive for all of Lumiere. Some of you are leaving to change the world. Others to discover the secrets of our universe. Some to protect loved ones. Others to find meaning in our all too short lives. As you sail into the unknown, know that Lumiere stands with you. When you battle the Paintress, know that Lumiere fights with you. Let the stones of her monolith crumble. Let her body lie at the end of the world. Unable to paint another death, let the stars no longer be hidden by her oppressive silhouette. Let the world once again watch the sun rise without the shadow of her cursed figure. May the wind of renewal take you to the ends of the earth. Tomorrow comes. Thanks to you. Expedition 33.
Okay, next up is Sophie. So Sophie is Gustave's ex-girlfriend. They were together for whoever knows how long, but they've been broken up, I believe, for like 4 years, where they really did not spend time contacting one another. And we find out that in the prologue, it is Sophie's gamage. She's going to be erased as soon as that number changes from 34 to 33. She's going to be erased. And I'll say this about her: she's very intelligent, she's also very empathetic, and she's a well-respected member in the community. The next character I want to talk about is Maëlle, and she's also a member of Expedition 33. We are introduced to her by playing as Gustave at the very beginning of the game. And we find out that she really doesn't want to be in Lumiere. She's like ready to go out and be a part of the expedition, but she's very young. I believe she's like 15 or 16 years old, which means she's a teenager, and she's deciding to pursue this path of being a part of the expedition at such a very, very early age. When it comes to her, she speaks her mind freely, so you don't have to second guess what it is that she's thinking. She's very honest. She's very honest and direct, and she's also reliable and trustworthy. So you got to have someone like that in your party, right? You got to have someone who speaks their mind freely, who is honest, and yet if you need them to have your back, then they definitely will. The last character that I want to talk about is honestly my favorite, and that's Lune. So Lune is also a member of Expedition 33. She's definitely strong-willed, right? It's going to take a lot to convince her otherwise, right? She is very purpose-driven. She's super committed to the expedition itself, the purpose and what it stands for, what it means to be a member of this group. And she's also responsible. So she understands that they have a mission, that they have an obligation to commit and follow through. And that's why I really like her a lot. So yeah, that's the last character that I wanted to talk about for this game. In the prologue, I definitely found myself going around talking to different NPCs. And when you have conversations with the NPCs in the prologue, you understand that there are varying perspectives about the expedition, as well as about life and death. There are some NPCs that feel like the expedition is pretty much a joke, right? Every year we send them out and they're literally just leaving to die. There are some NPCs that do support the expedition, they feel that the expedition is fighting for the hope and future of Lumiere as a whole, and they just fully support it. There are some NPCs that are hesitant about joining the expedition or may have an interest to join the expedition, but they're not entirely sure. And then on the flip side, you have some that were a part of the expedition, at least for training and preparation, and they decided to withdraw themselves. There's all these different varying, opinions and perspectives, but you even have some NPCs that are like, man, like nothing we do matters. We hope, we persevere, but then we fail every single time. And that's really what the real world is, right? Like the real world consists of different individuals who have varying perspectives that live among each other. And that's very present for sure within the prologue of this game. At this point in the video, I definitely want to talk about the combat system because honestly, that is where I spent most of my time. Within the 4.5 hours that I played this game, that's where most of my time went. It was to understand the different mechanics of the battle system. I'll say this, it's very refreshing for an RPG to have a turn-based battle system. Right now, when it comes to modern RPGs, we're just inundated with all these action RPGs, but it's so cool when a developer such as Sandfall Interactive decides to make an RPG with turn-based combat. So I think of other, developers as well too, like Atlas. When we talk about Persona 3 Reload, Persona 5 Royal, we could talk about Square Enix and Dragon Quest XI, but even Metaphor ReFantazio. But it's just so cool to see developers take this risk nowadays. They want to break away from what's commonly seen out there, which is the action-based RPGs, and really just have a turn-based battle system with some unique mechanics. So yeah, I'm excited to really talk about the battle system itself. When it comes to the battle system, it's one of those combat systems that you have to pay attention to what's going on. You can't just select the command and then just lose focus. You have to remain focused throughout, and there are definitely some reasons why. First off, on the left side of the screen, there's a timeline indicator, which lets you know the order in which the characters in your party and the enemies will attack. So you always want to make sure that you are pivoting your focus to the timeline indicator so that you know whose turn it is to initiate an attack. And as far as other certain portions of the battle system, there's the battle wheel, and that's where you probably spend most of your time initiating commands for your characters. So for the battle wheel, you can, use an item, you can attack, you can aim, you can also use a skill. You can also choose to flee or even skip your turn. Since I've talked about the battle wheel, there's actually a second wheel or portion of the battle system called the skill wheel. And you will actually refer to the skill wheel when you want to initiate a certain skill for your character. So I believe every character in your party is allowed a maximum of 6 skills. These skills can actually be unlocked in their tree. Every character has a skill tree that can be unlocked with SP, I believe, which stands for skill points that you earn in battle. So you can pretty much decide, for instance, with Lune, she's like the magic person of the group. So you can decide if you want her to have more fire-based skills versus, lightning or water-based skills by unlocking those skills in her skill tree. But yeah, nonetheless, when you are in battle, you pretty much go to the skill wheel and you can initiate those specific skills per character. Just know that every time you use a skill, there's a certain amount of required AP that is needed in order to do so. So that means that you have to find an easy way to generate AP while in battle. And the easiest way to do that is to do like a basic attack, parry, dodge, or jump. Those are like the 4 different ways where you can actually gain AP. And then when you have enough, you can use a specific skill in battle. Okay, to wrap up talking about this battle system, there's 2 other skills that I do want to refer to. The first one is called a picto. So a picto is a skill that you can assign to your character. Say for instance, right, you want to assign a picto that allows you to gain AP every time that you are successful at doing a parry. Then there's a picto for that. That's just like a small example. But throughout the game and throughout the different environments that you travel through, you're able to actually pick up pictos. Which are all these different skills. Now, one thing to note is that for every character, you can assign up to 3 pictos, at least so far from what I've been introduced to, but no 2 characters can share the same picto. And when you use a Picto in battle 5 times, I believe 4 or 5 times, then that Picto gets mastered and becomes a Lumina. And a Lumina is what you would call an internalized skill, which means that you can assign that same Lumina to more than one character, which means that more than one character in your party can have the same Lumina. But here's the thing, every character has Lumina points. So you have to equip Lumina depending on how many points you have per character. Something that I definitely forgot to even really talk about is the fact that the different enemies that you encounter will move differently. That's one of the main priorities of the reason of why you have to stay focused in battle. Every enemy attacks differently, or enemy type attacks differently. There are some enemies that can hit you with a one-hit combo, but there's others that may have like 4 or 5. And you have to familiarize yourself when it comes to your enemy's mannerisms, right? So whether you're facing Nevrons or facing a Gestural Merchant, you have to understand the way in which they attack and then use that to your advantage. Also, you can even exploit their weakness. When it comes to any type of battle system, it's all about exploiting the enemy's weakness. And, you know, say for instance, you use a certain skill and, you know, you'll see that there is a weakness, or it breaks their defense, then you can exploit that weakness to your benefit. Or if there's a weak point that's on the enemy itself, you can use aim, like the command aim, and focus on attacking that specific weak point, and that can lower the enemy's health. So yeah, overall, I'll say this. When it comes to the battle system, it's all about staying focused, exploiting the weakness of your enemies, and making sure that you're familiarizing yourself with the different mechanics as far as what you can initiate with the characters in your party. I did mention earlier that in order to use skills in battle, you have to unlock them, right? Every character has a skill tree, but in addition to that, you can also do other things to upgrade your character. Whether you want to, you know, change their weapon, you can alter their hairstyle, their clothing. You can choose to upgrade their attributes, their vitality, which is health, their agility, which is speed, their might, which is strength, defense, and even their luck, right? Like, you can increase all these attributes to allow your character to perform better in battle, and it's definitely important to make sure that you do that outside of combat for sure. Okay, so just to wrap this up, I mean, when it comes to this game, like I said, there's so much to talk about, and I've only have played 4.5 hours. I'm only done with 10% of the game, so I hope that this video really encourages you all to go check out Expedition 33, whether you can find a physical copy or even just something digitally. But yeah, man, this game is like amazing. The music is stellar. I do hope that Sandfall Interactive comes out with like a physical soundtrack, because I need that soundtrack in my life. It's like a perfect blend of, you know, symphonic, classical, folklore music, and some other additional genres or styles of music, but it's just super impressive, and the environments are just breathtaking. I know that 2 areas that you actually encounter beyond Lumiere, the first one's called Spring Meadows, the second one is called Flying Waters, and every area that you travel to is distinctly different and is designed in a way where you necessarily don't need a mini map. You can actually go down a specific path and come back to the main path, and, you know, be able to you know, fight enemies, you know, collect Pictos and Chroma, which is the currency for this game. But yeah, anyhow, I could talk about this game a lot, but I just want to leave you with these initial thoughts. And yeah, if this is something that you found interesting, then let me know down in the comments below. I'm very interested to hear everyone's thoughts on this, and I do hope that you will consider playing this game. Even if you've never played an RPG before, I think this is a great game to dive into and just understand the mechanics of a turn-based battle system. So with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. I'm out.